The marble lobby of Sterling Heights Tower was usually a place where nobody dared to make a mistake. Every morning, expensive cars stopped beneath the glass entrance, executives hurried through the revolving doors, and assistants followed behind powerful people carrying laptops, documents, and phones. Nobody paid attention to the janitors. They were supposed to be invisible. But on that rainy Tuesday morning, one janitor was about to stop the most powerful woman in the building, and what he said would change both of their lives. Daniel Carter had been working as a janitor at Sterling Heights for almost 3 years. At 38, he had learned not to expect kindness from wealthy people. He wasn't bitter about it. He simply understood the world. He was a single father, and his 8-year-old son, Noah, was the reason he kept going. Every morning before sunrise, Daniel prepared breakfast, packed Noah's lunch, checked his school uniform, and made sure his son had everything he needed. Then he walked him to the bus stop before heading to work. Daniel's clothes were always clean, even if they were old. His shoes had been repaired twice, and his jacket had a small tear near the sleeve. But he took pride in his appearance because Noah always told him, "Dad, you're the hardest working person I know." Those words meant more to Daniel than money ever could. That morning, Daniel was mopping the main lobby when the entire atmosphere suddenly changed. People straightened their backs. Security guards moved toward the entrance. Assistants stopped talking. A black luxury sedan had pulled up outside. Daniel looked toward the glass doors and immediately knew who had arrived. Victoria Sterling, the billionaire CEO of Sterling Global. She was 41, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country, and famous for being almost impossible to impress. Newspapers called her brilliant. Business magazines called her ruthless. Employees simply called her the boss. Victoria stepped through the doors wearing a dark tailored coat, holding a phone in one hand and a leather folder in the other. She didn't look at anyone. She never needed to. People moved aside automatically. Daniel lowered his eyes and continued mopping. He had seen her many times from a distance, but he had never spoken to her. That was about to change. Victoria walked toward the elevators. Everything seemed normal. Then Daniel noticed something. He stopped moving. His eyes focused on Victoria's right hand. She had just touched the elevator button. Daniel's face went pale. For a moment, he wondered if he was imagining it. Then he saw Victoria raise her other hand toward her neck. Daniel dropped the mop. "Ma'am." Victoria stopped. She turned slightly. Daniel was already running toward her. A security guard immediately stepped between them. "Back off." But Daniel didn't stop. "Don't let her move." The guard grabbed Daniel's arm. Daniel shouted, louder this time. "Don't move. Don't speak." The entire lobby went silent. Victoria stared at him. Her expression changed from annoyance to disbelief. "Excuse me." Daniel pointed at her. "Please. Don't move your head. Don't speak." The security guards looked at each other. One of them reached for Daniel. Victoria raised her hand. "Wait." The guard stopped. Victoria looked directly at Daniel. "Who are you?" Daniel swallowed. "Daniel Carter. Maintenance." "I know who you are," Victoria said coldly. "Why are you telling me not to move?" Daniel's eyes remained fixed on her neck. "Because something is wrong." Victoria frowned. "What?" Daniel slowly stepped closer. The security team immediately moved with him. Daniel raised both hands. "I'm not trying to hurt you." "Then, explain yourself." "I saw something on your collar." Victoria instinctively reached toward it. Daniel shouted again, "Don't touch it." She froze. For the first time in years, Victoria Sterling looked genuinely frightened. The lobby remained completely silent. Daniel took another careful step forward. "There's a tiny metal piece attached to the inside of your collar." Victoria's face tightened. "A pin." Daniel shook his head. "No. What is it?" Daniel looked toward the security cameras. Then toward the elevators. Then back at Victoria. His voice dropped. "It's not a pin." One of Victoria's guards pulled out his weapon. "Sir, step away from her." Daniel didn't move. "I need everyone to stay calm." Victoria stared at him. "Daniel, what exactly are you saying?" He took a breath. "I'm saying someone planted a device on you." Victoria's face went completely still. "What kind of device?" Daniel looked at the tiny object near her collar. "A transmitter." A murmur spread through the lobby. Victoria immediately looked at her security chief. "Is that possible?" The security chief shook his head. "We need to scan it." Daniel interrupted. "No. Everyone looked at him. Why not? Victoria asked. Because if I'm right, whoever planted it may be listening. Victoria's eyes widened. Daniel pointed toward the elevator. And if you go upstairs right now, you could be walking directly into a trap. The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Victoria stared at him. Why would anyone want to trap me? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the leather folder in her hand. What's inside that folder? Victoria's expression hardened. That's confidential. Daniel nodded. I thought so. What does that have to do with anything? Daniel looked around again. I don't know yet. Victoria stepped closer. You stopped me in front of 50 people, accused someone of planting a device on me, and now you're acting like you know something you won't tell me. Daniel's voice remained calm. I don't know who did it. Then how did you recognize the device? Daniel hesitated. That question was the one he had been hoping she wouldn't ask. The security chief noticed his hesitation. Answer her. Daniel looked down. Then he slowly rolled up the sleeve of his uniform. A scar ran across his forearm. It was old, deep, and unmistakable. Victoria stared at it. Daniel spoke quietly. I've seen one before. Where? Daniel looked into her eyes. 6 years ago. Victoria waited. Where? She repeated. Daniel's expression changed. It was the reason my wife died. The lobby went completely silent. Victoria's face lost its color. Daniel lowered his sleeve. I didn't come here to tell you this. I didn't even know I would ever see one again. Victoria's voice became softer. Your wife died because of a transmitter. Daniel nodded. Not exactly. He looked toward the elevators. She discovered something she wasn't supposed to discover. Victoria's eyes narrowed. What did she discover? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the folder in Victoria's hand. Then he said something that made her blood run cold. Whatever is inside that folder, someone is willing to kill for it. Victoria stared at him. The security chief immediately took the folder from her. Open it, Victoria ordered. He placed it on a nearby table. The folder contained financial documents, contracts, and several photographs. Victoria scanned the pages. Her expression changed. Daniel watched her carefully. You recognize something? Victoria didn't respond. She turned one photograph over. Her fingers began to tremble. Daniel saw the change. What is it? Victoria looked at the photograph. Then at Daniel. This picture was supposed to be destroyed. Daniel stepped closer. What picture? Victoria held it up. It showed a warehouse. A man stood beside a black vehicle. The photograph was grainy, but the man's face was visible. Daniel looked at it. His entire body froze. No. Victoria noticed. You know him. Daniel's eyes remained fixed on the photograph. I thought he was dead. Who is he? Daniel didn't answer. Victoria stepped closer. Daniel. He finally whispered the name. Richard Vale. Victoria's face changed instantly. Richard Vale had been one of the most respected executives in Sterling Global's history. He had also disappeared 6 years earlier. The same year Daniel's wife died. Victoria slowly lowered the photograph. How do you know him? Daniel looked at her. Because he was the last person my wife spoke to. Victoria's mouth fell slightly open. That's impossible. Why? Because Richard Vale never knew your wife. Daniel shook his head. He did. Victoria stared at him. Daniel's voice became heavy. My wife wasn't just a schoolteacher, Victoria. It was the first time he had called her by her first name. She noticed. Then who was she? Daniel looked toward the elevator doors. She worked for your company. Victoria's heart began pounding. What's her name? Daniel looked directly into her eyes. Emily Carter. Victoria stepped backward. The name struck something deep inside her memory. Emily Carter. She remembered that name. Not from employee records. Not from an office. From a sealed investigation. A confidential investigation conducted 6 years earlier. Victoria whispered, Emily. Daniel nodded. My wife found evidence that someone inside Sterling Global was stealing billions. Victoria's face went pale. That case was closed. I know. Richard Vale was blamed. I know. Then why are you bringing this up now? Daniel pointed toward the tiny transmitter on her collar. Because 6 years ago, Emily found the same device. Victoria stared at him. Daniel continued. She removed it from her office desk. She took it home. She told me someone was watching her. Victoria's breathing became shallow. What happened? 3 days later, she died. No one spoke. Daniel's eyes were wet, but he refused to look away. Police called it an accident. Victoria whispered, and you didn't believe them. Daniel gave a bitter smile. I was a husband who had just lost his wife. Nobody believed me. Victoria looked at the transmitter. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because the next morning, someone broke into my house. Her eyes widened. They searched everything. What did they want? Daniel looked at the security cameras. Evidence. Victoria's voice trembled. Did they find it? Daniel shook his head. No. Where was it? Daniel looked at her. I kept it. Victoria's eyes widened. Where? Daniel reached inside his janitor's uniform. He pulled out an old, worn photograph. He handed it to her. Victoria looked at it. Her hands began shaking. It was a photograph of Emily standing beside another man. The man was Richard Vale. But that wasn't what shocked Victoria. Behind them stood a younger version of herself. Victoria stared at the image. I was there. Daniel nodded. You were. Victoria's voice broke. I don't remember this. Daniel looked at her sadly. That's because someone made sure you wouldn't. Before Victoria could respond, every light in the lobby suddenly went out. Darkness swallowed the building. A second later, the elevator stopped. The security alarms began screaming. Victoria grabbed Daniel's arm. What is happening? Daniel pulled her away from the elevator. Don't move. She stared at him. Why? Daniel looked toward the dark hallway. Because somewhere in the darkness, he heard a familiar sound. A quiet metallic click. The same sound he had heard 6 years ago. And this time, it was coming from directly behind them. Daniel whispered one sentence. He's here. Victoria turned pale. Who? Daniel looked into the darkness. Richard Vale.